All righty. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Sports to Suits, where I highlight former athletes that not only did some incredible things in sports, but are also doing some amazing things in business. And this week, I have my new friend, Mike Attardi, on the line with me. Mike, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited about doing your show. I saw it a few times, and I'm a huge fan. So I was excited to be asked.
Well,
Thank you.
I am a super fan as well, and I am so excited, as is a lot of other people, to dive in. One, to your background, but two, to also dive into this whole NFT conversation. So I am super excited about that today. But to tee that up, so you were a former NFL Los Angeles Raiders player. You have also had such an incredible background, not just in sports, but also with some amazing companies that you have worked for. Do you mind giving us just a little bit of a background just about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in Long Branch, New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore, um, which is a beautiful place. No matter what anyone says about Jersey, it is really a amazing spot to actually grow up on the shore, be able to go surfing and bike riding and all those fun things. But I was born in a really great town there, and I was just inspired by my father in terms of sports. He was a really strong military guy that never really preached it much, but we all kind of knew about it and stuff. And so he had me on a really good fine line there. And he always wanted to inspire me and kind of get me into things. So I started sports, and I loved just being involved with other people and teamwork and all this other stuff. So it really taught me some great stuff that a lot of people don't understand, that the foundations that you learn from sports is the catalyst on how you will be a better businessman and a better team player, because that's the most important thing. A lot of people forget that being involved in a business atmosphere is really a team effort. And I learned a lot of that working for the Walt Disney Company, because a lot of times we would actually talk about all these think tank sessions and stuff that we had to go through as Imagineer guys, as well as product guys, and so on and so on. So we have learned how to adapt in each other's business. But I think that started from the foundation of me growing up as a kid. Like really
So what
understand that.
sports did you play? Like, so when you were playing sports as a kid, was it always football or were you playing other sports?
No, I actually, my father was an all-state, all-American football player. In fact, went on full ride scholarship off to college. He never wanted me to play football. He was always like, "I don't want you getting banged up. I don't want you getting hurt," so on. So I started soccer, which soccer is a very physical sport. A lot of people don't know that, unless you really play it. And it's a great endurance sport too. So as a kid growing up, I was really more into soccer, like I was soccer and kicking and stuff. So one day I'm out there kicking corner kicks, and the football coach sees me kicking this. I was a freshman, and he goes, "Can you kick a football?" I said, "I don't know." And he held and he literally held the football and said, "Kick it." And just like a soccer ball, I got under it and I banged it through. And he goes, "Do it again." I do it again, and I kept making them. And he was freaking out. He goes, "You're my new kicker." And I was like, "What? Wait a minute! I've never even done this before."
So you
So
had
that's
never
how
played American football, but you just straight away, they just brought you in the game and you started playing football.
they threw me in. I mean, listen, when you grow up on a Jersey Shore, you're playing sandlot football all the time. I mean, like it's always like, you know, a lot of fun. Like going out to the streets and playing stickball and football, and you had to. I mean, literally, the quarterback would say, "All right, I want you to go to that dodge and make a left, and then I will actually hit you open and stuff." And we would go to dodge, make a left, and actually catch a ball. So like I started as a wide receiver. I loved catching. I loved the catch. and I had really good hand and eye coordination. And if you know anything about football in terms of kicking and golf, football and golf has a lot of similarities because it's a hand and eye, yeah, coordination. But with kicking, it's like eye and foot, and with your club, it's like eye and club. So if you have that special technique of being able to actually do timing and things of that nature, then it's a really good teaching, like it's a real good teaching methods for kids to learn about a hand and eye coordination.
So you mentioned that your dad didn't want you to play football, but you ended up playing football. So what are your thoughts around young kiddos playing tackle sports?
I was on the fence a few years ago because of actually my own sons growing up. I have a 18-year-old, 15, and a 8-year-old. Now my 8-year-old has shown an interest, and I'm not going to stop him because a lot of the safety stuff that has been introduced, I feel really, really, really confident. Like for example, like back in the day, if you were thirsty and you were practicing on the football field and you wanted to get a drink of water, the coach saw that as a weakness and was like, no water. And meanwhile, people were, dehydrated and not understanding about heat stroke and sickle cell anemia and a lot of these things that actually came afterwards. But there were problems when I played, but no one actually addressed those problems, So I think today with actually USA Football is a really amazing educational arm of the NFL. And they've been going out and really teaching and training coaches, because a lot of times, if you really think about like the Pop Warner level and the smaller level, club sports, the coach is someone's father or it's someone's uncle or something that kind of was thrown in there, and they're not really trained. Yeah. And they're not really taught or trained. And the same thing with like scouting. Scouting got better. Like, for example, I'm heavily involved with the Boy Scouts, and now the training with them is really incredible. So, I mean, you have USA Football that has really taken the stand on this thing with the help of the NFL. And listen, they've done a great job. I mean, there are less head concussions. There's like less heat strokes and sickle cell anemia problems and things like that actually do occur.
Interesting. So how did you go from high school football into, did you play football in college or did you go straight to the NFL? Tell me a little bit about your journey outside of playing just football in high school.
I don't know too many people that actually go from high school right into the actual NFL. In fact, that's like probably not happened. Just because of the fact that your body has to develop. I mean, and you have to really learn the game. The game of football is not about brute. I mean, it's really about wits, and it's all about timing and strategy. And the more that you get to learn as a student of the game, I think you become a better football player from actually being a student and knowing the rules and knowing where you have to be and knowing what you have to do at your position. It's so important that I think it's something that gradually comes from, doing football in high school, off to college, and then off to a pro setting. That's if you're lucky, because I'm going to tell you, it's a very hard thing to do. I mean, a lot of kids from the high school level have these dreams, and they're great dreams. And as far as I'm concerned, I always said to like my dad, I said, Dad, I'm going to trade an education. Like I'm going to trade football for an education. And that's what I did. I literally traded football for a scholarship, and that scholarship led me, a lot of people think that like football defines who you are.
Yep.
Football didn't define who I was ever. In fact, it just gave me the tools in terms of learning. And that's the most important thing that I could share with people today. I traded football for an education, and education is something that no one can ever take away from you. They can actually take away my little trophies here and there and stuff like that, and they can come and steal it. But but at the end of the day, they're not going to steal what is in here,
So when did you start thinking, I'm going to go pro? I'm going to play professional football.
Well, it kind of all started where I was supposed to go to some pretty good schools, D1 programs, D1 AA programs, and there was a guy by the name of Andre Reed, who was in a small school at Kutztown University. And my father said, why don't we go to Kutztown? It's only a couple hours away. I'm like, Kutztown? I never even heard of that. I don't even know what that is. And, well, it's by the Amish. It's Amish country. I'm like, all right, well, listen, day off from school with my dad. This is cool. Let's go. So we go there, and the first thing I see is like these Amish people with the horse and buggy going down the street. I'm going to myself, what is this? What's going on? I'm actually from the shore where all we saw is like, ocean and, like in beach. And there I'm seeing cornfields and that's when the Children of the Corn had just come out.
Oh,
and
okay.
I was scared of that movie. I was just like, Dad, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is a good fit for me. No, but I went there, and Andre Reed said to me, he goes, do you want to be like a small little fish in a huge pond, or do you want to be the biggest fish in a small pond? And at first I didn't really understand it, but then I got it. What he was trying to say to me is, I can put up some monster numbers and be noticed by scouts if I stay at this, rather than go and compete with like 5 or 6 other guys for a D1 spot, which, if my father's not on the board of trustees of that school, it's kind of hard sometimes, So I thought about it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go to Kutztown. I was like, with Andre Reed, and he was like, I'm going to put all the scouts on you. And I'm like, thanks, that's great. And he was right. I wind up starting my first year. I made all American. I made all PCAC, all ECAC. And the stats just kept going up and up, and the scouts came around, and I got lucky. I mean, a lot of people say, a lot of times you have to have that skill, of course, but you have to have that like 1 or 2% of luck that could actually make it happen for you,
So like I preach all the time, like the people that you're surrounded with, regardless of where you're at in your career, make all the difference. So I would imagine that having him as a leader and somebody that you can model behavior around, like he's gunning for you, he's pushing for you, he's getting you in front of all these scouts, but he's also teaching you leadership skills.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Andre was amazing. I mean, here is someone that went to a Division II program in Pennsylvania, but I'm going to tell you, Pennsylvania is a very, very competitive football state, of course, and there are Division II programs could probably be Division I to Division I AA, and I'm not kidding, because a lot of the kids that can't get into the Penn States and the Bucknells and and Boston and Florida and so on, they all go there, so it's very, very, very competitive football, and the thing I loved about Andre is he always crafted his skill. Like, for example, he was having an issue his senior year with catching. And then one day I was juggling with these tennis balls. And he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm juggling. He goes, why? I said, because of hand and eye coordination. And he goes, wow, maybe that might help me. And then he started to actually juggle. And I'm going to tell you, he didn't drop a pass that whole entire season. And when you're being thrown passes by Jim Kelly that are coming at him like 1,000 miles in like an hour, I mean, he was spot on. And that's why he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, it's because he really crafted his skill all the time.
Oh my goodness. So what was it like walking onto the field for the first time?
The first time I had that experience is when I was in Tokyo. In fact, I was with the Los Angeles Raiders, and we were having a one of those. It was called an exposition game. It's when the Raiders played the Dolphins over at the Tokyo Dome, and we go over there for a whole week, and we do PR and media and all this other fun stuff to sort of introduce the game of football. And I go in for my first ever kick. It was about like a 32-yard field goal, and I'll never forget the crowd. The crowd was banging on these things. They were banging on these things, going bum 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 bum, and they do it all the time for all these events. I mean, it's really funny. But the decimal level that when I made the kick, it went from a bum 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 into this. And being in the Tokyo Dome, I kind of went deafened. I mean, it was like that really weird experience where you're at a concert and you can't hear anything because it's so loud. And that was my experience. And I remember Jeff Gossett turning to me. He was my holder at the time. He goes, "Well, welcome to the NFL." I'm like, "Oh my God. Thanks."
I mean, that totally changes the game, I would imagine. Just as a young kid experiencing that, it totally changes the game.
I mean, I'm humbled to say that I was with some of the greatest football players of all time. I mean, Howie Long, Marcus Allen, Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig, Timmy Brown. I mean, these are all Hall of Famers. Bob Golick. Our starting kicker at the time, Jeff Jager, was amazing guy. And I'm going to tell you, I was a backup. So I backed him up, and it was funny because when they signed me, he had just come back from being in the Pro Bowl. So I'm thinking about how am I going to beat this guy that just, actually made the Pro Bowl, and Al Davis kept me on the actual practice squad, which we call the Taxi League squad. And we actually practice with the team. We're with the team at all times. We don't get dressed for away games, but we were kind of getting dressed for home games, and I had a lot of fun. I had a really great time with those guys. And it was
what made
really
them so good? Was it talent? What was it? Like when you're looking at like the highly high, like the highest caliber of athletes, what makes them so good?
I'm really going to say focus. They were really focused on what they were doing. Like, for example, one time I went to Ronnie Lott, and Ronnie Lott was known for one of the biggest hitters of a defensive back. Like, if you caught the ball as a wide receiver and you're playing San Francisco or the Raiders, you're going to know that you're going to get hit hard by Ronnie Lott. I'm sorry. And Ronnie, I asked him, I said, "Ronnie, how do you hit so hard?" And he goes, "I want you to check out some film on me." I'm like, "Okay." And then come back. So I did. I asked to see some film on him and stuff. And I started to realize that he would launch himself. He would literally launch his whole entire body into the tackle, whereas a lot of people were taught stand your ground and wrap and all this other stuff. He would set off like a missile. And when those two worlds collided, I mean, he got the better end of it, So if you really look at the actual films on him tackling and stuff, I mean, he was laser focused about doing that and learning how to throw his body. And then there were guys like Bo Jackson that were just so natural. No matter what he did, I mean, you could play him in table tennis and he'll beat you, or he'll beat you in pool. He'll beat you in any game possible because he's got that focus. And you know what? I learned a lot from him because I was like, I need to be that way. I need to be focused. I need to just concentrate, mean the ball, and not see anything else out there. And that really helped me a lot.
So you have leveraged your sports background to see so much success in business. And so I want to dive into your career because it is so impressive. So when you left the league, what did you do? Like, where did you go?
Well, first I cried. No.
Well, in the transition, I want to talk a little bit about that before we dive into your career. Like you didn't.
You know what? It's really funny. I have kids ask me all the time, being a football player, and listen, I was a kicker. So the only time that I would get hit is when they had a bounty on my head back in the day. Trust me, they had bounties and they would go after the kicker all the time. And of course, you're not seeing the guy and you get hit on the side. I mean, and you're seeing stars. I mean, you are a concussion. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And so what I learned when I'm talking to these kids is they would think that, that everyone is going down there and just beating the living bejesus out of everyone, and you just have, you're getting hurt, concussions. So I said to them, what do you think my greatest injury was? And everyone's raising their hand. Oh, you probably broke your leg. I said, no. You probably strained a muscle. No. And they'll go down everything physical, everything in my body. And then finally I said, no. The biggest hurt was the day I got cut, because emotionally I was told I was not going to go back in that locker room anymore. I was not going to be with the team. And I didn't know what the heck I was going to do at that point. And that was the biggest hurt. I had my feelings hurt. That's the biggest hurt. My feelings were hurt. And
and you weren't expecting it, right? Like, and I don't know that anybody's ever expecting it, but it was just like, it happened abruptly in your case.
Yes. I mean, and it does for a lot of athletes too. I mean, there's some great athletes that probably should have been in the league for many years, but because of them getting injured. I mean, listen, Bo Jackson could have been the best running back of all time. No doubt about it. But because he had a hip problem and he had to get hip replacements and this and that, I mean, he was amazing. I mean, so you can say that about a lot of athletes that were great in high school and they never made it to college because of getting hurt. Or college kids that were just spectacular that couldn't get to the actual next level because of them getting hurt. So, yeah, I mean, longevity is a big part of it. And that's why people take care of their health more nowadays than they knew of back in the, 80s and 90s and stuff.
Well, there's a lot of focus around preparation for career outside of sports now that
now there
is different. Yes, nowadays. Yes. So what was your experience? So when you transitioned out of the sport, did you go immediately into the corporate world? Like, what happened after that?
Well, I was lucky. I had an uncle of mine that was a financial planner. So he turned to me and he says, how much money did you make your senior year of college? I said, well, I had a job on campus. It was fun. It was me turning on a film projector to actually watch a film. That was my job. And I got paid. And I think I made like at the most like $22,000, $23,000. And he says, and you lived okay, right? I said, yeah, I'm only going to give you $30,000. And you're going to put everything away. I was like, what? I said, no, wait a minute. I'm finally coming across some money.
Yeah, I mean, you made money in the league. And so now going from that to the realization of $30,000 is a big hit, right?
Yes. So I'm like, no, wait a minute. So what he did was he bought a few unknown companies, their stock. And one of the stock being Cisco Systems. And Sun Microsystems and a lot of tech. And he bought a lot of tech. And when I got out of the league and things like that, and a few years later, I was pretty set in terms of financially.
But that's because you had the resource that was preparing on the financial side for you leaving the league.
Bingo. And they didn't start that with the NFL until afterwards, because the NFL owners had a very... I don't want to call them the necessary evils, but they were. And I'll tell you why. Because for us, we're just a bunch of pawns. And they have some stars, of course, and they want to keep the stars happy. And you keep your Tom Brady's very, very happy. He's the greatest of all time. But also there were a handful of these guys that they want to just make happy. Now, for us, we become the casualties of war because, if you go past 3 years or you make your third season, you're vested. So a lot of guys, again, cut their second season just because you're a numbers game. It's not because your talent was not appreciated or you weren't good enough, but it's easier for them to get rid of you and then bring in a new guy to do your job for the next 2 years and so on and so, and then cut them.
So
So
when you've got existing players, what would you recommend that they do to prepare for life outside of sports?
do what my uncle did. I'm not even kidding. Like, just live on what you can live on comfortably, and don't try to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, a lot of people try to keep up with, Marcus Allen and all those guys, but he's making millions of dollars. I was only making less than 100,000. So if you think about it, you can't live their lifestyle, or you can't do their lifestyle. You have to be humble, and a lot of guys, I'm telling you, when you get to that money, it's hard to be humble, because the fact that some of these guys never had it before.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's kind of what I like about the name, image and likeness. These NILs now that are in college, that was never our, that was never brought to us, of course, because the NCAA just shut everything down. But that's a great subject to really talk about, because that is taken off like wildfires, and there's going to be more corporate sponsors and more people getting involved in that, in that realm, because of the fact that it's such the low hanging fruits now.
But don't you think so? If you see some of the patterns around some of the professional athletes and what they do with, maybe even just their finances outside of sports, don't you think that that's going to be a huge consideration to take into effect when you're starting to pay high schoolers and college athletes significant amount of money? Like, isn't that something that there should be some type of regulation or something around that?
Well, I mean, there is somewhat of a regulation that they're trying to put with the schools, because how it was established now is, if you get a scholarship for Penn State and stuff, and that's a full ride boat and you're getting everything paid for, they can have you sign a document now that says that we own your NILs if you want to sign the scholarship. You know what I'm saying? Now, is that right? I don't think it's right, but
It seems to me like there's still a lot of questions up in the air in regards to how it's actually going to benefit a lot of different types of people.
well, that's because it's so new. It's just like the
Yep.
NFT business, in which we'll be actually talking about. But I mean,
I am super stoked about that.
yeah, no, and it's so crazy because of the fact that, I mean, NILs are the future. I'm going to tell you right now, we're actually working with a few colleges now, and we're getting creative in which the athletes are not going to be like over bastardized in terms of their brand and stuff. It's so important. I always teach my own sons, okay, that your brand, who you are, and your brand is so important. So you have to protect it. And a lot of these athletes, they'll fall for the first shiny thing that comes by, and they're not going to be protected. They're not going to be watched over. They're going to be taken advantage of course. And there's going to be a lot of stories that are going to come out in the future on how all these all the money disappeared from under the shell. You know what I mean? Because the shell was moving around, So they have to be careful, and they have to be smart about it, these actual athletes now. And they have to learn more about it. See, if you don't know about it and you don't understand it, you shouldn't get into it. Like, it's like my father taught me this a long time ago. If you don't know about something, don't invest in it, because how are you going to make an educated decision about that?
So let's talk about, so you've gone and done some amazing things in your career. Let's talk a little bit about, so when you transitioned out of professional sports into
Yes.
the job market, what did that look like for you?
Well, of course, I had to recreate myself. I had to recreate my brand, and kind of figure out like what I was going to do. And, you go to college, you get your degree, and you're thinking about someday I'm going to do something with that. I'm probably one of the few guys that really made that happen. Like, for example, I was an English major, and I love to write. I love to read. And so what I started to do is I started to write scripts I started to write soundtracks too as well. I have this weird thing where I can create songs and write music, and I wasn't really formally trained, but I can do it, and it's, just sit me at a piano and I can grab the chords, so I started to write, and I started to write for a few years, really developed this thing. And so I created like a lot of this content, in terms of the writing and composing and so on and so on. And then I met a friend that was in animation. Now, I loved animation as a kid growing up. Like I was a Walt Disney fan, and Chuck Jones and Hanna-Barbera, like, and all those great things. And then, huge fan of Tim Burton and Nightmare Before Christmas and all those things. And so as a filmmaker, I learned a lot from them. And so I got into filmmaking, in fact. And I started to do some short films. I started to do some commercial work, so on and so on, that led into, starting to concentrate on my own stuff. And so I had to create myself again. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, at Disney, you're great to work at Disney. Why don't you try to submit something over there?" And the next thing you know, I submit something and I get hired. And I got hired in Imagineering as well as cross-brand marketing. And then it just took off. And I wore a lot of different hats there. And I loved it because it was a great training ground for me. Listen, if you can learn the Disney way, it really does work. I mean, it really, they have the formula, like they have it down in terms of brand, in terms of marketing, in terms of, how to bring something out to market, so I learned a lot being there. And I think that really helped me as, believe it or not, a filmmaker as well.
So if you got somebody that's working on their personal brand, because you talk about personal brand a lot, based on your experience and everything at Disney, what are some like recommendations or some strategies that you would recommend that if somebody's starting to develop their brand, what would you request that they incorporate into that, and how would they go about it?
Be careful with social media. That's all I'm going to say, because I've seen social media rise a person and take them down. So something that you really have to take very, very serious accounts for. Because, see, like for me, for example, on my Facebook posts and stuff like that, I don't talk anything about politics at all. I'm not that person. I'll show my kids. I'll show like things that I am possibly working on in terms of animation projects, or I do a lot of charitable work. So I do a lot of great philanthropy things, online. And I use that as the vehicle to kind of, let people know who I am as a person.
So what about from a company perspective? So if you're talking about individual brand, you've got to navigate that and be very cautious about how you put information out. But from a company branding perspective, like Disney totally has this on point. So what are some things that they do that other people that are listening could incorporate into their corporate brands?
It's called secrecy. No, I'm not kidding. It really is. The best way to build a brand is through being secret about it. I mean, a lot of people are so encouraged to kind of like say what's on their mind and to talk about things. But when you literally work for a company like that, you're signing away your life, meaning that, any ideas that you might come up with is theirs. Anything in terms of proprietary IP content, you can't talk about. Anything that's new in terms of the actual market, you can't talk about. The actual public relations talks about the things that they want to be spoken about. Like, it's almost like, what is the narrative? What's the Disney narrative? What are they trying to kind of sell? Like, for example, when NFTs first came out, you didn't hear anyone talking at Disney about NFTs. You still don't hear them talking about the metaverse even too much. I mean, a few things maybe came out off of a leak or something of that nature, but I'm going to tell you, secrecy has a very big part of building your brand, because they want to know who's behind the curtain. Like really, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Like, who's behind the curtain, pulling the strings and all that stuff. But you can never meet the person behind the curtain at Disney. So I mean, that's what I think. And I can honestly say that because as you grow as a company, you really can't allow people to know what you're doing, because then it's like the old saying goes, like once someone does it, then everyone else is going to like jump on the bandwagon. I mean, it's almost like, when Facebook came out, oh, they're going to be called the metaverse now, quote unquote, and then all of a sudden Amazon jumped in, and then all of a sudden you got all these other people that are trying to fill that space and everything. And do you know what's really funny about it is the metaverse has been around for a very long time. It's just that people don't know it. But your games like Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite, that's the metaverse. I mean, it's just how companies can monetize it better. That's really what they're looking at and stuff. So
a lot of athletes go into sales or marketing roles. I hear a lot of athletes going into sales and marketing roles. And although you went into Disney into more of a creative space, do you think that a lot of the success that you had straight out of the gate was due to their leadership development programs or their training programs?
There's no doubt about it. Yeah. I mean, they do a lot of training. They actually are very good with training. And in fact, you have to go to the Disney Institute for a background on the company itself. I mean, a lot of people don't understand this, but and a lot of the younger kids that are growing up, they don't even know who Walt Disney was. I mean, all they know is that it's Disney. And the reason why Disney, the brand, has been going more away from the Walt Disney type of thing is because his name and likeness is going to be in public domain like any day. And they've been trying to fight it, but they can't, because, it's like Charlie Chaplin. I could put a mustache on myself and twirl a cane, and I can say I'm Charlie Chaplin now because it's public domain. You can use his likeness. You can use his name. I mean, it's crazy, but and that's what Walt Disney Company now is. That's why they're going towards the Disney, more of a brand, because they're not going to be able to control that. And if the government gives them a special okay to that, that's going to open up a can of worms for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of public domains, and that's when it gets messy, I feel.
So you've got a bunch of trophies back there. I want to talk a little bit about those trophies. So you left Disney and you went into more film production, correct? So share a little bit about kind of some of the stuff that you did on the short story side.
Well, that one, I had to turn a couple quarters for the actual gumball machine, but I finally won it, so no, I wind up taking off a few years, from the actual company, and I started to realize that I have to start making my own content because I'm not getting any younger, and I want people to hear about my stories and what I'm doing, because I have a lot of creativity and I think innovatively all the time. So for me, I wind up doing a short film. It's called Once Upon a Christmas Village. And I'm very proud to say that the actual film won 96 awards. And we beat out Disney and DreamWorks and all the biggies during the film festival circuit. In fact, I was on the top 10 of the Academy Awards for that actual project. And we came first runner-up here for the Cannes Film Festival. And I'm extremely humbled by that project because guys like Tim Curry was involved in it, and Jim Belushi was involved in it, and they just loved the whole content of it, and they were like, I'm in. And people ask me all the time, how'd you get those guys? That's a whole nother story, but I got them because they believed in the project and they loved it, and it really did so well that it really got the attention of the Hensons. And so Brian Henson, who was Jim Henson's son, took a liking to the film and the script. And together with Jim Hart, who wrote Contact, and he wrote Hook for Spielberg, and a bunch of other films. He brought him in, and myself and Brian Henson, and we rewrote the script of Snowyville, which was the name of the actual feature film. And then we were all set to make this film and get our money from a company on Wall Street in October of 2008. And then a week later, there was the crash.
So this film, it wasn't just rainbows and unicorns when you went to go make this film, is what you're telling me.
No, it was the '08 crash. And then we had to recover, of course, because a lot of people were going under pretty quickly. And the people that were going to finance our feature film went under quickly. And we were not able to get that film funded, but it's on a shelf. And what's great about it is that it's definitely going to see the light of day someday. I don't know when the film is going to see, but what's nice about it is we've got a lot of really great ideas for new projects that I'm doing, that we're going to take them out as NFTs and also in the metaverse.
Okay, let's talk about this.
I led right into it, didn't I?
And it is a great segue into this NFT Metaverse thing, because I know that there are tons of people, including myself, that are still trying to navigate these topics. And so I just want to ask, just straight out, so if anybody's listening and is not familiar with NFTs and the metaverse, can you just explain what it is?
So NFT stands for non-fungible tokens. Okay. So there was a mastermind behind this thing, is that they wanted to take digital art and monetize them. And you had a lot of these artists that were like, they had a lot of content. And just like myself, I have a ton of IP content. So if you're not with the bigger studios and you're not with Sony or Disney or DreamWorks, it's hard to get your content made. So this was the vehicle for us to say, hey, listen, we don't need you guys anymore. We're going to just do it ourselves. And what the NFT is, I think it's going to get bigger this year, because there's a lot of regulations that are starting to be put on them. Okay. And I predict that the that the NFT experience is a significant evolution, and then it's going to be accepted, more and more. And it's definitely the gateway into the metaverse, I feel. Okay. Now, one of the areas that I feel is that Wall Street got involved because of the cryptocurrencies. And the cryptocurrency, as you know, is really, some months you have great months with crypto. The following month, you're begging, why did I ever get involved with cryptocurrency? But it always comes back. It always comes back. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it's not for the light of heart. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in it for the short game, cryptocurrency is not for you. I mean, cryptocurrency is for the actual guys that bought into Bitcoin for like $100, and now it's worth like 100,000. Okay, so, but it took time. It took a lot of time, but Wall Street's interested because of mining opportunities. And what mining opportunities, a layman term, is they want your information. That's what they're excited about. So
just define the metaverse. Okay. So what is the metaverse specifically?
Well, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the NFTs, because the NFTs is the gateway. It's like I said, into that world. Now,
okay,
The company I'm with, and I don't want to seem biased, but Wazuzuz is really in the leadership role when it comes to the cryptocurrency and NFTs, because we only deal with STOs, and STOs is secured token options. Okay, secured token options. Now, what does that mean? A non-fungible token does not have anything backing it up. It doesn't have anything attached to it. And one of the things that I love is the relationship that Wazuzuz has with a company called T0. And T0 created the STO. And in fact, there are companies working with the SEC right now because they have to regulate it, because it's like the wild, wild west.
It is.
It really is.
It is.
It's like the wild, wild west, and people are taking their, going on these platforms and selling their stuff, but what are they really buying? I mean, except for, hey, it looks great, it's great digital art, and you have maybe a fractional of that piece and stuff, and you own it, and you can tell all your friends you own it and stuff like that. But what I like about an STO is that you attach cryptocurrency to it, or you attach something tangible that actually could be traded. Okay. See, when I first heard about NFTs, the first thing that came into my mind was Ponzi scheme. Or better yet, it was like, how can I explain this one? Maybe people will understand this better. It's like the trickle down, like only the guy
marketing, like an MLM.
Yeah, it's like a that's what I thought it was. And quite frankly, it is right now, if you really think about it. And that's how it's structured if you just do an NFT by itself. But with an STO, which is a secure token option, okay, which the SEC is going to be telling everyone that you're going to have to do that. I mean, you're just going to have to do it because people want secured tokens, because they want to know that there's something that's backing it. And that's what's great about Wazuzuz, is that they're working directly, like with that idea of STO, and how do we attach the the actual cryptocurrency as a vehicle. So I hope I better explain this to people, because most people are like, NFTs, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's digital art. What's so special about it? I don't,
So a lot of the questions that I get are, well, how can you define the value of it? Like how do you, like a physical piece of art, right? It's hard to even put a value to that piece of art, right? Unless it's a Picasso or something like that, but then you take it a step further where it's in this you can't even, like, it's just a different. So I get a lot of those questions of like, how do you even define the value of these things, or identify that it's a good quality investment?
That's a great question. It's got to be secured. Like, it's got to be a secured asset. Like, someone's got to put a value to it. And what the current NFT thing, there's no current value. What happens is people buy, or they want into it, or they sell their fractionals, and that's how they make their money. Is they go in from the bottom, they'll buy CryptoPunks, and this CryptoPunk thing had taken the lead on this stuff. Okay, and if you look at CryptoPunks and stuff, you will understand where I'm going. Some of these things sold for $1. They're worth now like thousands of dollars. I mean, it's crazy, but you can buy fractionals of them. You can sell them. You can trade them and things like that. It's almost like back in the day when I had football and baseball cards, and I would sit with my friends and I would trade the cards and stuff like that. How do you put the value to that unless Beckett's magazine put a value to those, because they said that
monopoly money.
Well, it's like saying like this: a 1967 Mickey Mantle back in 1980, you could buy it for like $30. That's mint gem condition. But then Beckett said, listen, that's worth not $30, it's worth $300. And then what happened was you had all these people wanting to buy mantle in 1967 or 1952 or what, like every year you want a Mickey Mantle card, but they put a value to it, and then people were trading and selling and buying, and those values went up. So that Mickey Mantle went up from 300 to 3,000 because there's a supply and demand, because they're not making them anymore.
So how long has these NFTs been around? So you mentioned, Metaverse, like it's been around for quite some time. How long have these NFTs been around?
Well, I mean, listen, they were trying to do this years ago, and it just wasn't getting a lot of steam. There wasn't a lot of play for it. But then when China started to buy all the gold, because a lot of people don't know this story, but back about maybe 10 years ago, there used to be a buying gold store on every corner. And what it was they were set up by Chinese investors that were setting up these stores. They were buying all the gold from America on our phony dollar, and giving us this money, but they were taking the asset of gold. And now China is the largest owners of gold, and that's why they want to go to the gold standard. Well, of course they want to go to the gold standard because they probably have all of our gold in Fort Knox is probably over there. I don't know, but if you think about it, everything is made with gold. Everything from your cell phones to your computers to the USB portals, all that stuff is made of gold and silver. So if you think about it, it's a really good bet. It's a good buy during bad times, economy. And that's why there are these pushes for like selling gold and buying gold and all this stuff. But
it's interesting. So Brett just put Antonio Brown video taking off the jersey and tuning to the locker room as an NFT. I mean, it's amazing how these athletes are leveraging NFTs to their benefit right now. So I see this as a growing opportunity, quite frankly, especially in the athletic community. What are your thoughts specifically around athletes and NFTs?
Well, my thought about Antonio Brown was the behavior that he actually showed was not acceptable. And I would not be the actual buyer of that actual NFT. Okay. Personally, I think people buy NFTs based on nostalgic things, or they want to buy because they like the piece, or they want to collect it because they know in the future it's going to be worth something. So you want to get involved with, if you want to get involved with NFT collecting, collect things that might interest you, and who knows, one day they could be worth something. One day they couldn't be worth anything. But
well, it's just like art. Like there's certain paintings or artists that, just will catch your eye and you're like, I love this artwork. And it sounds to be a similar thing. I have got to have you on another conversation because we're wrapping up on time. I could literally
talk. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay.
It's been an hour. So I do want, so who, like, how can people follow your journey? So I know you're on LinkedIn and I'm going to put your LinkedIn profile on here, but what are some ways if people want to learn about NFTs or engage with you guys on a conversational standpoint, like what are ways that people can get in touch with you? Don't give phone number.
No. I really respond to Facebook. I love Facebook because it's not that I like Facebook. I can't stand Facebook. I really can't. I won't go there, but it's the best way for me to communicate with people. Instagram, I do very little. LinkedIn, I do more. So if you contact me through LinkedIn and you friend me, I will friend you back. I really am good about doing that. Also with Facebook too, I'm really good about that stuff. And if someone would private message me, explain who they are and what they want to do, I love explaining to people what this world is with the metaverse that's coming up, because I'm excited because I am creating a metaverse myself. So
Well, I've got to have you back on, and we've got to do a webinar specifically around this, because I know, like, I'm fascinated with it, and I know a lot of other people are fascinated with it. But like you said, it's the wild, wild west. It's hard to find really good quality information that,
Yes.
makes sense and that's easy for, I guess, layman terms to understand. And so, Mike, I can't thank you enough for joining today and sharing about your background, sharing amazing tips and tricks with people about all sorts of different topics. We've got Brett chiming in here. Awesome chat, Michael and Amanda. I mean, it's just such a great conversation. And to everybody that tunes in, thank you guys for continuing to tune in. And I hope that you find the information valuable. And Mike, I look forward to continuing conversations with you. Thanks for joining in.
Awesome. Same here. And to everyone, be safe, stay healthy, and God bless.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.